up or something like that. All right, we're live now, everybody. Don't be scared. Let me get my little intro going. Joe, I don't know if you know this about me, but I can't just talk off the cuff. I will mess it. I'm like the anchor man. If I will read exactly word for word if it's wrong or something.
I can never get the date right.
Yeah. What is the date? God, we didn't last time we recorded was in
It's
February.
Friday the 2:10 p.m. No, that's wrong. The Mac menu bar is not helpful.
It's Friday the 13th.
Oh God.
It is.
Lori's favorite day.
Yep. You know I'm going to watch movies about that.
Yeah, I knew it.
Okay. Ready. Let's do this.
Ready.
Good afternoon. Today is Friday, March 13th, 2020. Today we're going to talk about WWDC 2020 and a whole lot more because this is the iMore Show. And joining us today on the iMore Show is the dancing worm, Renee Ricci of Vector fame. Welcome to the show, Renee.
One of the writers, it was either Oliver or Stephen, made a spinning parrot head out of my poor head, and I've just been spinning parrot-headed all day, and I'm dizzy. Okay, they might think it's fun, but I am dizzy, Lori.
I'll tell you, I woke up this morning to read all of our internal chats, and that was my favorite thing of the day. I laughed out loud, and it was pretty great. And also joining us today with the hair color and stylings of Lori Gill is actually Georgia Dow. Welcome to the show.
I'm cosplaying Lori for the show.
I love it. I love your new look. It's good. You look good.
I can't sing.
You would love it.
And a special guest today who's hiding out in the corner being a good boy for now, at least, is Assistant Managing Editor of iMore, Joe Keller. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
You are pointing in the right direction. I always get it backward.
I'm doing the double Spider-Man, 1960s Spider-Man point.
See? Just don't point in the right direction.
All right. So obviously the first thing that we want to talk about today is some news that just happened 2 hours ago.
Thank goodness it happened, because we would have had to talk about such depressing stuff if not for this.
Oh, don't worry. We'll still talk about depressing stuff. But WWDC has officially been announced, sort of. There's no date yet, but Apple did announce that, yes, indeed, there is going to be a WWDC. It's going to be a virtual conference. So that's interesting. It's actually not unexpected. I think at this point, we all kind of realized this, if they're going to do it, they're probably going to do a virtual conference, which seems to make the most sense. But it certainly changes the dynamic of what WWDC is, at least for this year, which in part is a place for developers to get together, meet each other, talk to each other, network with each other, and with Apple. So, Renee, let me ask you first. You've gone to a lot of these, so you have a lot of experience in really why WWDC is so important to developers to be in person there at. How do you think this is going to affect the community of Apple developers right now this year?
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I actually coincidentally did a video on this like just 2 days ago, talking about the different things that Apple could do and the things that would be easy. Like, for example, they've been streaming the sessions and the keynote and the State of the Union and the Apple Design Awards for years. But the in-person stuff, they have a whole labs, which if you picture like a gymnasium filled with small sections where they have tables with the actual people who make the software, like UIKit and WebKit and security, and developers come in and sign up and they sit down and they say, hey, I'm having this problem. And the actual person who created or maintains that code looks at it and goes, oh yeah, that's our bug, or oh, you're doing this wrong. And that's so valuable for them. And likewise, like former iMore people, Ali Kazmuha and Liana Lofty have taken turns manning the Apple Store labs, where they've helped developers who have issues with how do they handle their apps on the App Store. And there's design labs where like the Apple's designers will go through and look at your app and say, I don't understand what you're doing here. Maybe you should try this. And that stuff is invaluable. But like Lori and I got to be at the podcast booth last year, and we got to actually for a couple of years now, and we got to interview people and talk to them, and that's different. And the meetups, accessibility, like I got to go to the accessibility meetup. Lori much more courageous than I, did a bunch of the fitness and women in tech events. And also just like there's the talk show live and Jim Dalrymple's a Beard Bash and the Relay FM party and the Mac Rumors meetup and just all the coffee shops and bars. And I did think it was interesting. Apple said that they will be contributing $1 million to San Jose to help make up for the lack of WWDC. And people were already joking, well, okay, fine, that's the bar bill for the talk show. Maybe that's the coffee bill for the lineup. But all of that, it's going to be harder to, like, you can do it like we're doing this right now, obviously. But Laura, you've been there. It's not the same feeling.
Yeah. So exactly what you're talking about, Renee, which is the community and the helpfulness that goes along with it. Now, I don't think anybody's going to be that upset that they don't get to go to Beard Bash or something like that. It's a bummer for 1 year, but that's not that big of a deal. But I would say that the hardest thing for developers right now is that immediate access to Apple staff and getting that kind of support. This is an app that they're trying to put out right now, or an app that they're trying to fix or work on right now. So not having that one-on-one conversation with somebody to help them fix that or make it better or something like that, that's going to be, I think, a little bit of a struggle for the app developers. But there is so much great interactive technology out there right now that I have a feeling Apple is not just going to do a streaming video where you watch somebody talk about the next software that's coming out and how to use it, but they will have interactive chat rooms where you can you won't necessarily just hold a phone up to a developer and say, what's wrong with this? But I bet there's going to be some one-on-one interactions that you can sign up for where you can actually talk to an app developer face-to-face on a screen. I think that's going to be probably one of the most important things that Apple adds, and I have a feeling they're going to do it. Joe, do you think this was a good idea to just kind of like cut everything off, even though the interactive community is good? This is the most important thing because of, safety and stuff like that. Do you wish that Apple was going to actually have it live?
Yeah, I think this was the right move. I think working in an abundance of caution is the way to be at this point. I know a lot of people are going to miss not just the hands-on time or the in-person time with developers and Apple engineers, but also more social connections that they can make amongst the community. But, assuming that this is just a 1 year thing, then I would say, yeah, definitely the right move.
Yeah. And then, Georgia, how do you think this affects us on an emotional capacity? I think a lot of people are just kind of generally feeling a little bit of fear about the spread of COVID-19. And here's a big Apple event that's actually not supposed to happen until June. And they've made their official decision that they're not going to do an in-person conference. How does that affect our psyche?
So definitely the more that you hear about it, fear spreads. Like, I have a lot of my people, especially those that are dealing with health anxiety. This is terrifying for them, though it is for most of us just a flu. It's really scary to hear about all the time, and to have all these events. It just propagates that this is something really dangerous, that a really big company would cancel an event, not really canceled, would alter an event so that people aren't going through. It scares people, and the more that you hear about it, the more you get scared. And unfortunately, that fear feeds clicks. And so websites are made to then pay up to that fear by making money, which, that's what websites do. You can kind of deal with it. And that's the same thing that the media does. But in the end, it's just propagating how many texts that I get in a daytime, which is umpteen texts of people that are really terrified that this is happening. So it's just kind of one more thing that adds to it, that there's another change. But again, Apple has no choice. They cannot be one of the sources of, and a lot of people fly through, and they can't be another source of an outbreak because they wanted to have their event. So I don't think that they had any choice.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. We lost Georgia just a little bit. I do have another follow-up.
We already spoke about it. So Apple can't have that kind of bad press. So I'm happy that we're at least getting a video conference, but it's not going to be the same.
Yeah. And so, what do you have any suggestions on what we can do for ourselves to kind of calm our fears?
Well, one is if you're finding yourself getting anxious, you really should turn off, like, don't read every single thing about it when you feel that you're feeling anxious yourself, and do something else with your time. But also, you want to know that if you're healthy and well, this is not something that you have to worry about. If you are going to just, take necessary precautions, wash your hands, which we should be doing more of anyways. Don't go and touch everything and everything that you is. Don't have your hands touch your face. And if you're feeling sick, you should stay home and wait it out for a little. No, Renee. No, bad, Renee. Bad. Stop. So, and wash your phones. Let's just say it. Our tech is probably one of the dirtiest things that we have. Give a light, gentle Lysol wipe to your phone and to your AirPods and anything else that you use.
Oh, that's legal now. Apple reverse says that's legal now.
Yeah, so we actually this is a good segue into another conversation that I did have on the list of things to talk about. We had already written a bunch of articles on how to sanitize your devices, and one of our suggestions was do not use disinfectant wipes on the screen of your phone because it messes with the oleophobic coating. And then Apple updated their support document for how to clean your phone that says right on it, it's okay to use Clorox disinfectant wipes on your phone.
They just wanted to make you a liar.
Yeah. And to follow that up, Joanna Stern of the Wall Street Journal washed or wiped down an iPhone. It was an iPhone 7, a brand new iPhone 8, brand new one. She covered half of the screen and then wiped the other half with a Lysol or a Clorox wipe 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000 times.
Weird number like that. And she had a clicker to count them down.
Yeah, to show that there actually wasn't really any change whatsoever in the oleophobic coating. So that made us all look like a bunch of silly
Someone
dummies.
in the chat, Stephen in the chat's talking about, like, you can't find Lysol wipes. Actually, it is better to wash your hands with soap and water, and your tech. Again, you want to just make sure it's damp and not wet, because you don't want to, soak your technology. Like, the phones are waterproof, but you still just don't want to. But alcohol is not as good as soap and water. And I work with a whole bunch of doctors, and that's all they were talking about, is soap and water is better. So that's the way that you should wash your skin. And at night before you go to sleep, yes, you should cream your hands so that you don't end up with cracked skin if you're doing a lot of this. And if it seems to be taking up your world, don't worry, take it a down notch. You're going to be okay.
Just relax. Joe, do you have any suggestions about keeping your devices clean? I know you had written a lot about it last week.
See, I was laughing because I wrote that article that told you not to use Clorox wipes.
Oh, you were the one that...
Yeah. And then a day later, after that article is published, here comes Apple. Oh, by the way, you can use Clorox wipes.
Yeah. Now, did you amend the article after that? What did you...
Yeah, we amended the article. Yes, that has now been updated. Not that you can find the wipes anywhere. They're sold out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think George is right. Washing your hands is always essential, even when there's not a pandemic. And as for keeping your technology clean, Clorox wipes, highly recommended. Isopropyl alcohol, and you've got this rather new-ish category of products, these UV cleaners.
Yeah.
Like phone soap. We just had a review go up this week on iMore from Brian Wolf for phone soap's bigger, cleaner, the home soap, and that fits things like tablets and all that sort of thing. Yeah,
and UV, ultraviolet light, is known to kill like 99.9% viruses. Yeah. So I actually reviewed the phone soap about a year and a half ago, and I thought it was great, except because it doesn't actually change anything about the cleanliness of the way the phone looks. It was really like, I don't know if it's working. I just have to assume that it's working, but it is UV light. It's like a tanning bed for your device, and you just set it on there, you close it, and 2 minutes later,
does it turn your silver iPhone into space gray?
If you have a setter for your nails, to be able to do shellac on your nails, and there's a little UV setter, you can use that. But you know what? There's another great device that we all have for free, which is the sun.
Yes.
And the sun gives UV light, and you can just leave your tech in the sun. But you choose which way you can go with that.
Also, let me put a warning out there on that is if you leave your device out in the hot sun, it could just kind of freak the battery out and make your phone shut down right away. So if you suddenly have completely dead battery, that doesn't mean you broke your phone. Just plug your phone in and recharge it. My mom has multiple times
from heat. So like that will destroy your battery health.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom has multiple times said, my phone's broke. And I'd say, did you leave it in your car? And she'd say, yes, but what does that have to do with anything? And I'd say, just plug it in and charge it.
Am I the only one who thinks Micah Sargent can make a fortune by doing a phone detailing business right now?
I know. Well, no, because he wouldn't want to touch all the phones because of the germiness about it.
That's true. He could just set up the robots.
Especially not now.
Yeah. So let's pause it a little bit about from our perspective, what WWDC 2020 in a virtual world is going to look like. For example, the keynote address, that's almost definitely going to happen. It's just that the only people in the room are going to be the Apple employees who are watching it. The rest of us are going to be streaming it.
Now, can I ask a question, Lori? Like, do you think that there's going to be like applause and like, because the only thing is you're missing the audience. So are they going to have like the fake applause and cheering?
They're the ones who are applauding in the normal events. There's always a whole front row of Apple employees. Like the first 5 or 6 rows are all Apple employees, and they're super excited because it's their thing on stage. And Tim's like, "Here's this new message today." Like, I worked on that. Woo!
Yeah. So yes, there will still be applause, just from the 200 people in the room instead of 700 people in the room, or whatever that ends up being. But there was also, I don't know if you noticed it, but in Apple's official press announcement, they did mention specifically, and this is, from my point of view, that there will be events for press. So what I wonder is, what does that mean? Because again, Renee and I, when we go to WWDC, we don't just go there to the keynote address and take pictures and go home. We have appointments afterward where staff actually shows us these features face-to-face, one-on-one, and gives us a little more insight into why these features are so important, what they do, what they mean. It's actually incredibly helpful for us to be able to give this information to everybody else, because we have personal knowledge from people who know exactly what this feature is supposed to be like, to help us spread the word to everybody else. So what's our press features that we're going to get at a virtual WWDC? Renee, do you think it'll be more like a one-on-one, FaceTime conversation, or do you think they're just, feeding us some information to make us feel a little bit better?
The whole thing is scale. So like the thing about WWDC and maybe the iPhone event is they're really international, especially the last few years. Like there's journalists from Asia, from Europe, from all around the world, and Apple marketing and PR from all around the world. Everyone's in the same place. So they can, like, we have like an iPhone event or like an Apple Watch, you'll get like the one-on-one thing, but the amount of people they move through WWDC, like they had a secondary lab area set up basically last year, and you'd go from station to station, they'd explain things. And doing that remotely, would it be like groups of people on like a FaceTime group call, and we all have like our emoji on, and they're showing us like the new features of something? It's and they've done phone briefings before, like phone briefings, even especially during the FBI thing, they did whole conference calls with media teams. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of balance they have. But I'll just miss the holding and seeing and touching and talking and all that. Not other people, the devices. Back off.
And the wishing that you could touch the display screen and getting in trouble for asking if you could touch it.
Getting yelled at by an Apple senior vice president, Lori Gill.
Yeah, sorry, I can't help myself. And I think, again, this is, it's brand new, but I agree, Renee. Like, I like walking into a room and seeing perfectly lit displays of Mac Pros and, things on stands that are shiny and bright. It's beautiful and it gets you very excited about it. But I also think, because we have to postpone so many things, there is not a March event coming, and now WWDC is virtual. I don't think Apple's going to be keen to release any physical hardware right now. I think they're going to postpone that. I might eat my words on that one, but that's what I think. Unless it's an update to something, like if it's just going to be like the new iPad Pro that doesn't have anything new on it. I don't know. I'm starting to question myself right now because we've heard some rumors about some big hardware changes, and I don't know that Apple wants to wait until the fall to release all of that. So anyway, I'm always WWDC for me has always it's most exciting because it's new software, which I've always felt that it makes your devices feel like they're brand new, even when you haven't bought any new hardware. It's very exciting and really fun, and there's new features and new changes. And I'm always more excited about the software stuff. And I don't need to be face to face or in person with somebody to just install iOS 14 and go for it. So that's what I think.
I just want those new keyboards, Lori. I just want those new keyboards on everything.
I do too. It may or may not happen. It might happen. It might not happen till the fall.
As well.
Yes. You might have to wait a little longer though. Just be patient.
Well,
be
you
patient
have
and
to
wash your hands.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I use it, but that's why they don't want you to touch all the screens, Lori. No. Yeah, it's one of those things that, you get so very excited about it. But if they released anything right now with all of the news cycle, it would get like a very little amount of press. So it also makes sense that they're going to wait a little while until, we kind of have a handle on anything.
Also, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that he will make sure that no Canadian is left without the ability to pay their rent, their food, their child care, their job. But he did not say free Apple stuff for everybody.
Not yet. What do you think, Joe?
I think we could see for certain hardware. I think we could see a rollout kind of like we did last year, where it rolled out over the first half of, I think, the last week of March with new iPads and the second generation of AirPods. I think we could see certain hardware updates, but yeah, I think Apple might hold what you might consider its more serious hardware a little later than it otherwise might have. Also, I mean, production issues in China due to current events might also cause issues with hardware debuts.
Yeah. So speaking of iOS 14 and software and things that we can expect at WWDC, it's a pretty good segue, right? Joe, earlier this week, 9to5Mac just blasted out a bunch of stuff that we're calling leaks. But actually, Renee had helped clarify to me what it was, which is reverse engineering of an early build of iOS 14. It doesn't mean that these are things that we're going to see, even in the beta, but it is some things that we can tell that they're at least working on at the moment. Whether or not it actually makes it even into the beta, we don't know. But can you give me some insight into some of the things that may or may not be coming this June?
Yeah, that's always important to say. Nothing's final until Apple announces it, and even then, might not be final just yet. See iOS 13. But yeah, so there's a lot in these leaks or reverse engineerings. We got a new home screen experience, possibly, although 9to5Mac phrases it as a page where you can view your apps on a list. Feels very actually Windows Phone-esque from that sort of description. Cursors, though, this is the one that that really excited me, is full-on cursor support on iPad, with a possible with rumors of a possible smart keyboard with a trackpad built in. I mean, as a big iPad user, it really is exciting.
Yeah, that was to me almost expected, just because of the way they added assistive touch cursor support in iOS 13 for accessibility. And though it's a little bit clunky and a little bit awkward for just general cursor use, I think it was definitely writing on the wall that it was coming soon. So it's good to see that this is going this way for sure.
Yeah. Plus major changes that Apple has made, particularly in iPad OS 13.4, which is still in beta. They've added something called full keyboard access, which was actually previewed back during the initial iOS and iPadOS 13 betas, which basically you can do everything on iOS or on your iPad using these, using the keyboard, using a smart keyboard or even a Bluetooth keyboard. Things like keyboard commands for launching a shortcut, which that's my particular neck of the woods. And so it just seems kind of like a natural evolution almost to add that trackpad support, because they, as you said, they added pointer support in assistive touch with iOS 13 and iPadOS. So this taking it to this next step just feels natural, and I think a lot of iPad users are going to welcome it.
Yeah, I think so. In fact, I have reason to believe that maybe when it was added for accessibility, a lot of people just kind of jumped in and went, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to use this. And maybe we're seeing that a lot of people actually have ended up using it. And therefore, maybe Apple was like, okay, we're going to plan this for the next operating system update, because people seem to really be into it.
Yeah.
There's also a possibility of a actual dedicated fitness app from Apple, not just the activity app to track your exercises, but apparently apparently there's a new fitness app that can be used with your iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and Apple TV that will let you download guided fitness-related videos and will walk you through various workouts. So that's kind of a neat idea. Something that Apple has been kind of bullish on with the Apple Watch is fitness, and the company hasn't really done anything other than give you access to all of the other fitness apps in your life that you enjoy.
I have a question for you, Lori.
Yeah.
So Peloton famously bolted an iPad to an exercise bike and a treadmill and then charges subscriptions to get real life classes. Apple has invested heavily, not just in their health technology, but they also have some really famous coaches and health people at Apple. Would you, Lori Gill, pay for Apple Workout Plus if it would stream to all of your devices, would be tracked on your Apple Watch, and you could join live classes or pre-recorded classes at any time from the comfort of your own COVID virus enforced house?
I'm going to say...
Feel it.
I know. So I actually recently signed up with a personal trainer, and it's been absolutely amazing for me. And you know how much I hate exercising, but I don't hate it as much anymore because of this personal trainer that I've been working with. So if you would have asked me 2 months ago, I would have said nope, because I don't care. I hate exercising. But where I'm at now, I think price definitely matters. Unfortunately, fitness, even at-home fitness programs tend to be a little bit on the pricey side. So I think it's a great idea, but I don't see this particular, coming from Apple as being better than any other place. Like, there are some things that hands down, I will use an Apple version of over some other version, like Apple Tags, for the purpose of the safety, security, privacy, having everything in one ecosystem, all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. But I think a fitness app, I don't think that has to be an Apple exclusive, extra special thing. I think that you can find what you're looking for in a lot of different places. And even whatever Apple provides may not be for everybody, kind of like the way Apple Plus is. What about you, Georgia? Is that...
I would probably try it out. I would try it out and see. I think that it's the barrier to entry with Apple is so low that it's just kind of easy to test things out, because usually they give it to you for a period of time for free. And then you can decide, you know what, this is for me. I'm not into the magazines, but I really like the TV. And so I'm into this. And so I would definitely try it. I think that a lot of people that might be, have difficulty with mobility or getting out or have social anxiety, so they don't want to train with someone that's that close and personalized, but to have a personalized person that's kind of on a phone, which you can control how much they see, what they see, and what you do, would be much easier. And if it's an app that Apple makes that's even a program that you follow along for, would be really easy for people. So I can see that this works out for a certain set of the population where they would test it out. We would get more fit. It works with the watch then. You could put all of your information into it, and it fits into the Apple ecosphere. So I'm intrigued with it. But for the name, its code name is Seymour, because all I think of when I hear the word Seymour is like, feed me, Seymour.
Yes.
So I wonder if they're working unconsciously to then you eat and then you have to work out and then you eat again.
Could be that the person who came up with the idea's name is Seymour.
The
It
icon.
could be that too. Not as much fun of a thought, but
It was called Stark, and the Apple TV, sorry, the Mac on Intel was called after the South Park aliens, and now I'm blanking. Something like that. So they have all sorts of really goofy nicknames.
So it could be after the plant, is what you're saying.
Could be, yeah.
Well, the guy that the plant was calling him. Fair. I like this.
Yeah. Joe, would you sign up for Apple Fitness?
I'd give the trial a go. Yeah, certainly.
I think all of us would give the trial a go.
There would inevitably be a trial, but I'm out most mornings running anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much value I'd get out of that given how I spend the rest of my day.
How about if Jennifer Aniston and Jason Momoa were hosting the workouts? How much would you pay then?
I still don't know that I would do it. Yeah, I know. I think it's similar to TV Plus. It's going to be how different people feel about it kind of thing. Some people are going to be really excited about it and find that this is the thing that they needed to push them into exercising, or it was a way for them to, quit their gym and do it at home for cheaper. Other people are probably just going to be like,
What I really like is that with Apple, they do differentiation based on integration and offering an experience that only Apple can offer. TM. But that means that you'll have really good software and hardware. You could theoretically watch on your Apple TV at home. If you're traveling in your hotel, you could prop up your iPad. Your Apple Watch would have complete integration with it. So you'd always have everything monitored and reported back, and it could change it. So I'm guessing if you like that sort of thing, it will be a very good version of that sort of thing.
Yeah, it'll be deeper integrated. Yeah, I think
and
you're
if
definitely
they did it so that it was short, small workouts, you could do a 7-minute workout, you could do a 15-minute workout. Then I think more people would be able to go in, because a lot of people don't want to get a personal trainer because you have to do 30 minutes or you have to do an hour, and getting all the way to the gym just to do 15 minutes seems like a little bit of a waste because you're spending more time traveling than you are working out. But to do 5 or 15 minutes for people that are not already training, that would be a great way, because in the end, what we're trying to do is build good habits. So if you did that for a few weeks, then you get into the habit of working out and you build more cardio, and then you can increase it from there.
Yeah.
And hopefully they gamify it.
So they probably will. I mean, they're very good at that kind of stuff, is like giving you rewards for the things that you do. So yeah. I would say
two things. One, Peloton will sue immediately, and two, they won't let you have leaderboards, and someone like Google or Fitbit will, and then you'll want to know that you're crushing your friends.
Peloton would lose.
Yeah.
You never know. The courts are terrible.
I'd like to see that battle happen.
Well, we probably will. So stay tuned.
The thing to think about there is Apple already has activity challenges for the Apple Watch, and that could just be seen as a natural extension of what Apple already has.
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah, your friend challenges, which, by the way, for those of you that are friends with me in the fitness app, I think that you're seeing that I meet my goals every day now. Thank you very much.
Oh, nice, Lori. Nice.
Before we talk about anything else relating to...
I'm shaking hands like Kid and Play now. I'm getting a lot more fitness steps in. I'm not touching anybody. I'm just doing like the foot thing.
Yeah. Before we move on, I want to tell you about our sponsor this week, who's Netgear. Is your Wi-Fi feeling old? Does it buffer while streaming? Does connecting new devices slow it down? Can it handle gaming, video calls, large files? And what happens when you try to do it all at once? It doesn't matter how fast your internet connection is if your Wi-Fi router is old and outdated. With Orbi Wi-Fi 6 from Netgear, your Wi-Fi will feel new again. Wi-Fi 6 is the latest technology that allows more devices to connect and stream simultaneously without impacting speed or reliability. Did you notice I said simultaneously? I slipped that one in there for you. The result delivers the fastest Wi-Fi for all your devices anywhere in your home. You can stream in HD, 4K, or even 8K without buffering, eliminating lag while gaming, and connect to more devices with your Wi-Fi than ever before. Orbi Wi-Fi 6 is like upgrading your Wi-Fi to first class. If you're ready for the best Wi-Fi ever, you can get it today from Netgear and never worry about Wi-Fi again. Check out Orbi Wi-Fi 6 at your local Best Buy or at netgear.com/best Wi-Fi. That's netgear.com/best Wi-Fi. Thank you, Netgear, for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. So we still have lots of other things to do with iOS 14 and watchOS blah and iPadOS blah and macOS blah to cover. So let's move on to another one that's come out. And again, these are in a reverse engineered build. So there is no guarantee that these are going to show up even in the beta of iOS 14. But one thing that I'm kind of excited about is there's a chance that Apple will allow third-party apps to customize different voices for your Siri. So you could have Mr. T, or you could have Jean-Luc Picard, or Captain Kirk. Exactly.
That's a great idea.
So Renee, maybe you can explain a little bit about how this would work. It's for the apps, not for the OS, not for iOS, but for third-party apps to add customization for Siri within their apps. How would that work exactly?
It's unclear. And I think a lot of us are just having like grandiose hopes and dreams that'll be shattered when Apple doesn't announce Homer Simpson as a new voice for Siri. What it sounds like at this point is that, especially for languages that aren't as well supported by Siri, like English, and some of the Romantic languages are, they would be able to create their own voice dictionaries to supplement that. That would be very useful for specific vocabularies too, like if it's a professional app and Siri doesn't understand all the terms that's used in engineering in some of the Slavic dialects, for example. Or I'm sure Joe's going to have a Wakandan version ready to go in time for launch, or probably Huttese. I don't know which one will be the priority, but you have to
Elvish.
Yeah, it doesn't. High Elvish. It doesn't really say that they'll be able to do something like be a replacement voice, which companies like Google have done with John Legend and TomTom has done for a while with James Earl Jones. So less chance that you'll have a Darth Vader phone, and more chance that just some of the niche apps that you're using will have better voice. Like George and I know this because we drive around Montreal. Montreal is a tough city for assistants because the names are like a mix of French and English, and it will choose wrong every time. Like, it'll say the English one's in French and the French one's in English.
But even for other words, if I may just take a shot at Siri, because when I can, I will. Like I went by a road and Siri says like turn left on Raja, and I went, oh, like that's an unusual road. I didn't know that was the name of this road. And then I look and it's Roger. This is not even a French word. I understand when, Siri says, Montrealius instead of Montreal, or Oueste instead of West. Fine. But Roger, I'm sorry,
because
Siri.
it's the French version. It's Roger. There's no D. And so Siri has no understanding of why someone would omit the D from the word Roger, and it just panics and tries to find the next closest neighbor. But that's the problem we have. And with this technology, someone could say, well, these are the unusual words that we use. Here is the voice prints for them. And then hopefully it will give you better results.
I would love that.
Do you think that opening up third-party Siri to apps so that they can customize voices could actually benefit Siri's learning? Like maybe Apple would actually take some of the knowledge that Siri gains from these third-party apps and use it toward the operating system itself?
I mean, so I want to be all mean about it and just say, well, nothing else has worked. But I don't think it'll work that way. Like I think it'll just know how to pronounce certain terms, but I don't think it'll go back into any sort of training. And most of the problem isn't the pronunciation with Siri. Like it is in Montreal, but in most places it's not the pronunciation. It's like it's still the consistency. It'll like 9 out of 10 times or 19 out of 20 times it'll give you an answer, and the 10th time it'll do something so bewildering you don't know how it could possibly have happened.
Yep.
Like I don't know
Like-
I don't know what lights mean.
Yeah.
Like I have to turn the lights on and off for 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah. That's actually the most annoying thing for me with Siri is the fact that it works sometimes and then just for no reason doesn't work other times, even though you've done everything exactly the same for it. Yeah.
Like we need to fix kind of the base, the foundation of Siri before we do like fluffy fancy stuff. And I'm all into superficial fluffy fancy stuff, but I need Siri to just work. Let's, please help Siri.
Yeah. There's so much potential in voice related computing, and it feels like so many companies, except maybe Amazon, but even still a little Amazon, are just leaving it on the table. Maybe they're all working on things and haven't told us about any of it yet, but tell us about some of it before it's ready. Make us excited.
I don't know though. I kind of think keep it to yourself until it's ready is kind of my idea. Although Renee,
They're definitely doing that though, Lori.
Renee had an amazing Vector video a while back where he talked about potentially how Apple could improve the way it rolls out software, which basically was take a page from Google and tell us what's in the pipeline, but don't make us think it's coming anytime soon. Just kind of give us a bunch of cool things that you might see down the road for the rest of the year, and then have dot releases throughout the year that update and add those features. And that seems a little more easy to handle, at least compared to the way iOS 13 came out, which it was a little bit of a cluster for Apple and wasn't quite fully baked. And I think that was an example of when they could have just said, we do have these features coming, but you're going to have to just wait a while. It'll come out when we're ready. Just expect it.
Do you think that part of that is because of Apple's controlling nature? Like at this stage, do you think that Apple needs to open this up? I'll ask this to Renee. Like, do we need to finally have Apple say, like, you know what, we're going to do a little bit of like beta or crowdsourcing at the beginning with, people that they trust so that they're not just going to mess with the software. But I think that at a certain stage, the technology needs to be opened up so that we can like real time state that, you know what, this is wrong. It's been wrong for years.
Like
can you fix this? The maps, like if we crowdsource something, I think that this would be better. And I think that this is the fault. And again, there's a lot of benefits with being controlling and not opening up your software, or at least opening it up to people to make an input about what works and what doesn't. Renee?
They have that system for maps, and it used to work really poorly, and now it works really, really well, especially with the new maps that are rolling out in the US. I think that'd be a great thing to add to Siri, like just a big old nope button. Siri goes, nope.
Yeah.
And then you say, what did you expect to happen? And you type that in, and it gets sent off. And the same team that does the quality assurance on the voice snippets gets to run that by and go, oh, wow, did we screw the pooch on that one? Oh God, Bill, check this out. Oh yeah, you can't believe this one. Oh. And then they fix it. That would be great.
They do that with the watch when you fall, right, Joe? Like you've seen it. I've done this a few times. I've actually fallen, and I've not fallen, and it thinks that I've fallen, and it asks me, "Did you actually fall?" So that it can correct. Am I, I talk with my arms. They're flying around, and Apple sometimes thinks that I've fallen down. Okay, fair. I am a clumsy person, and it asks us, and then I send a little message to help it get better at it. Could they do this for other things?
Oh yeah, I think they absolutely can and should do this for pretty much everything. In the betas of all of their software except I think watchOS, there's a feedback app that you can use to fill out when you spot a bug in a beta version of software. It's kind of clunky, but it works. For everybody else, I think this ain't it, chief button would be the way to go, and just have a short little snippet. Well, like an iMessage,
Oh yeah.
I'm in Messages for Business. Apple's one of those businesses. You can set up a support, sort of support line right now. If they had this sort of almost panic button type thing, it's like, hey, this isn't what I was looking for. This direction was wrong. What have you? Give you a direct line to Apple support. Yeah, they should absolutely do that. Crowdsource making everything better.
The first thing that I think of when I hear this stuff is, though, what are the resources that would go into that, and what would it be pulling away from in order to support that? Because, yeah, ideally, we would have our own little personal Apple concierge who would, like keep track of every time something didn't work right, but that requires a lot. And Renee has pointed out multiple times that these teams are actually, a lot of times, they're very small, and having to pull resources away from app development or software development in order to keep track of the times when Siri didn't work right, or when the maps gave you a left turn when it should have been a right turn or something, seems a little bit improbable.
Yeah.
But I'll say it. I got in trouble. I get in trouble every time I say it, but I'll say it anyways. Send your angry to Appaholic. No, Apple has the money to be able to spend towards doing this. They could have it curated so that it's only if it hits 100 times wrong, a similar thing, that only then does it go to a person to verify what's wrong and should it happen. And to be able to tell, at least for Siri, that someone said, turn off the lights, and Siri said, you know what, I'm so sorry, I can't make that phone call. That does not take someone that has to be a developer that has a certain knowledge of what's happening. That's just like you and I, like a human. They need just a human that can speak that language natively and understands it, or is perfectly bilingual. That is all they need. This is not going to break Apple's bank. They could choose to spend the time towards this. It would take time to develop the, interface to be able to, send that message into them. But this could totally happen. This is not beyond Apple's resources, money, skill set.
Ombre-haired Georgia's feisty. I like it.
And Georgia has it so right. Like everything that may not be perfect with Apple, honestly, they could just throw a lot of money in it, and that would probably help, because they are making a lot of money for their investors.
Right? Like, Lori, Siri's important. Siri is used on everything. So shouldn't they spend the money to make Siri actually work by now? How many years has Siri stayed? I honestly think
it's not a money thing with Siri. It's like you can throw a lot of money at the wrong thing, and I think that's what they've been doing. It's like they finally hired the guy from Google who ran all the stuff at Google, and he's built his own organization, and they're throwing money at that, which is probably going to be better. But what basically happened is Steve Jobs loved Siri, bought it, passed away. Scott Forstall, who actually went to school for AI, took over. He left, and then it got dumped on a guy who worked for Eddie Q, who'd been at Apple for 2 weeks. And they had a lot of arguments and things inside the organization about what it should do. The original Siri people left. Everyone thought they'd be amazing, but they made Viv, which became Bixby on Samsung, which is not exactly set the world on fire. So maybe they weren't right about what should have happened, but a lot of really talented people left at the same time. And you could argue that the people who were in place for years were, completely ill-suited to what they should have been doing. And that's just an example of throwing resources at completely the wrong thing. Like, I don't want to make fun of Microsoft or BlackBerry.
But go ahead.
But yeah, like Google and Amazon especially has spent massive amounts of money in exactly the right direction. And Apple needs both. They need to spend that money, but they need to do it right. And the longer it takes, the harder it's going to be to do.
I like that Viper in the chat room said, let's get serious.
Yeah, Viper's awesome. Thank you for being here, Viper.
Thanks, Viper.
He's also encouraging Georgia, which is dangerous.
I think you shouldn't do that. No, I really do think, though, it's about control. I don't think that it is that they're spending money on the wrong thing. I think that they don't trust that people will be able to really help them. They want to control what works and what does not work. And they need to open this up. This has been, how many, like a decade, like how long has this been that this has not worked? I don't remember, but it's way too long. And I don't want to be frustrated with the, virtual assistant that I have. I shouldn't have to spend my time yelling at Siri. I should be yelling at my husband and kids like a normal woman.
Searching the web for I don't want to be frustrated with Siri.
Yeah. It's kind of like I can rely on Safari on my iPhone. If I want to go to the web and go to iMore, I can open Safari and type in imore.com or hit my bookmark, and it's gonna do that. Siri should have the same reliability.
Well, we can always ask Siri to open up Safari for us.
I would like to. Well, the other thing is, I'll say this rant really quickly. I can't talk to my Apple TV, but I can talk to my HomePod, which then talks to my Apple TV, which then talks back to my HomePod, as if the Apple TV is giving me the silent treatment. This is how I'm living in 2020. But I also want to point out that in the age of COVID-19, we are spending a lot more time complaining about Siri than we are about the coronavirus. And I think that's telling for the state of Apple.
I'm sorry, you can't fix the coronavirus. Apple could actually fix Siri. So I apologize, but one of these two things are solvable. they don't deserve to get any buys on this. This is negligence. At this stage, negligence.
Okay, before things get out of hand, I want
excited by the chat group.
Room. I want to give everybody one opportunity to listen to a promo from our other sponsor, which is Indeed.com. When you start your hiring process, you may have questions. Will you find good applicants to choose from? What about education and experience? How will you know if you made the right hire? Indeed is here to help. Millions of great candidates use Indeed every day to find their next opportunity. You can post jobs in minutes and use screening questions to help create your short list of applications fast. Also, add skills tests to your job post so you can be confident in your applicant's abilities. Their library of more than 50 skills tests range from industry-specific skills like accounting to general aptitude tests like critical thinking. Indeed gives you the smart tools to make hiring decisions quickly and to be confident that you're making the right hire for your team. Post your job today at Indeed.com/iMore to get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting. That's Indeed.com/iMore. Terms and conditions and exclusions apply. This offer is good through March 31st, 2020. So you have couple more weeks to go on that one. Thank you, Indeed.com, for being a sponsor of this week's episode of The iMore Show. We are coming down to the end of our hour. We're almost done here. But let me talk a little bit about, there's so much in the news right now about coronavirus and how it's affecting everything, including Apple and technology. And it feels a little bit overwhelming to me. And I didn't want to talk about it too much. But what I do want to talk about, there are probably a lot of people listening right now who are, for the first time, having to work from home, even if it's in a temporary capacity. So I want to ask everyone, go around the room, if you will, and ask everybody, how do you work from home? What are some tips? Think about somebody who's literally never done this before. What's the one thing that you would tell them you absolutely should do? This will help you. And one of the things that I've noticed people ask a lot about is focus. How do I focus? How do I stay on track and pay attention to my job when I'm at home, when I'm working from home? So, Joe, let's start with you. What's one suggestion, one bit of advice that you'd give somebody working from home for the first time when they're just can't figure out how to do this? It's so different than working in an office.
So the easiest thing to do, I think, is set specific working hours. I get up in the morning, I do my normal morning routine, then I work 9 to 5 or 5:30. But you set that amount of time, and ideally, as sort of a subset of this, you will work somewhere in your home that is not someplace you sort of live in your home.
Mm-hmm.
You won't try, do your best not to work in your living room unless that's where you can work. But yeah, just set a definite period of time. And then after that period of time is over, stop for the day. Close the laptop, walk away, go have dinner, play with your kids, be done for the day. Because it's very easy to just keep working and always be in a working state of mind. And that's not healthy for you, to always be in work mode.
That's good. So keep some boundaries for your home life and your work life and set some actual hours that you're going to work, starting and ending hours. That's good. Georgia, what about you?
Oh, goodness. I could go on and on.
Pick one
and
that
on.
you think would be, in your mind, the most important.
The most important. The most important would be to get rid of distractions that are not related to work. While you're working, you should do one thing and start it and finish it and not have all of the other things. Starting a task is the hardest part, is the beginning of a task. You have to remember what you were doing, where you're at, make sure that you gather all the materials that you have. And so what we think about is multitasking, like someone messaged me, I just got this email, this person came up in Slack. That slows down productivity. It is much easier to have times that are set when you're going to check, say, Slack or email or whatever messaging service your work has, and that everyone knows that. And while you're doing your job, you should start a task and finish the task, because we've all had that point where we come back into a task and we've forgotten, what was I doing? What did I have? What did I forget? And then you have to spend most of your time reorganizing yourself to start your work again. So working in small, little, tiny bits, and you do one thing at a time, you begin it, you finish it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be complete. It is much easier to edit than it is to redo something completely and continue it. So give yourself that period of time. Throw away all of the distractions. That means your phone calls. You shouldn't be searching Instagram in the background. Make your place kind of zen, but also make your workspace kind of zen.
Georgia, that's so true. The one thing when I first started working remotely was I would have my social media stuff kind of up there and something that I could view. And I found myself getting just kind of distracted by one little thing. And being distracted isn't that big of a deal. It's trying to refocus again after you've been distracted. That's the hard part of not just where was I, but just putting your mind back into that space of the work that you're trying to do right there. So getting rid of distractions is a really great suggestion. Renee, what about you? What's one bit of advice that you would give to people working from home for the first time?
Watch that episode of Picard right away so that none of your other people in your company spoil. No, I'm just kidding. Be human and remember that even if you're not working with people, you're still working with people. So say hello, like if you have Google Meet or Slack or Microsoft Teams or Skype or whatever, when you start a meeting, when you start a group, when you check in for the day in your virtual office, say hello, tell people what you're working on, because you won't be able to glance at projects as you walk by the desks or the open concept office, and they can still maybe have some insight or ability to help you with it. When you leave, say goodbye. When you're going for lunch, you can say, I'm going for lunch. Are you guys taking around? Just act as though you're really in an office, and make sure that you use emoji and emoticons and things like that, because text is so strict and terse and people can read it the wrong way. So don't be afraid to don't overdo it. You don't have to put 19 emoji with every word that you type, but if you mean something to be a joke, just put a little smiley face next to it, or use like a Jiffy or something that lets people know the tone of what you're saying and not just the content.
Yeah. So that one of the things that's probably the hardest for working remotely when you used to work in an office every day is getting used to being alone. But it's important to remember that you're not alone, and hopefully that your company will have set up some version of an interactive chat. And don't just use it only when you have to. Use it to drop a joke in. Use it to say, I'm really bored. Use it to say, I read this funny thing on the internet. Again, take the George's advice about not being distracted, but after you're done with one of your projects, that's when you can kind of pop in and give yourself a little bit of relief, a little bit of social interaction. That is really important, because it can start to hurt your heart and your brain when you feel lonely because you're isolated and not like verbally using your voice. Like I literally don't use my voice until much later in the day on most days of the week because I don't have anyone to talk to. But I feel like I have a good, healthy social interaction with my coworkers because we have a Slack channel where we're constantly in contact with each other. So that's very important. My bit of advice was given to me when I first started working remotely about 10 years ago. Take a shower before you start your day. It seems really silly, but you may not even think you need a shower. And you might think, I'm just going to grab a bite to eat, grab a cup of coffee, and sit down at the computer. Taking that shower solidifies that you are going to work. It does something in your brain that makes you think work is about to happen, so that when you do sit down at your computer with your cup of coffee and your bagel or whatever you grabbed, your brain is ready to start a work day. If you wake up, you roll out of bed, you grab your computer, maybe you're even still sitting in bed, your brain hasn't quite really like gotten into the crux of it, and it's not ready to go yet. And so you're wasting that time anyway, not really being all the way involved. So take the shower, get yourself, extra 15 minutes of your day or however long it takes to get ready. Pretend like you're getting ready to go to work. You don't have to dress up as much. You don't have to put on makeup or anything, but make it feel like you're about to leave the house, and just don't leave the house. Go to your office, wherever that is in your house or where you work. So, one thing when we first started talking about this, some of our friends in the chat have a couple of different ideas too. So I'm going to run through those. Stephen Perry says, keep structure in your day, which is very similar to what Joe was saying. So you have your 8 hours, start and end, sit down at a specific spot. Don't just use any part of your house as your office, because that also starts to make it feel like your home and personal life is your work life. And that can get a little depressing. So have a separate place to sit. Stephen also says, get up and stretch often. That's true, because we sit at our desks a lot at work. At home, get up and stretch is actually a good thing. In fact, it's probably easier to get up and stretch when you're at home, because you don't have to worry about whether or not your coworkers are going to make fun of you for it. So take a lunch break away from the computer. Again, Stephen, thank you for that. These are all great advices. Taking your breaks, walk away from your computer and like actually have yourself a break like you would inside an office. These are all good suggestions. So again, for anybody that's listening, I know a lot of people have had to work from home temporarily because of some circumstances beyond their control right now. So we just wanted to give you some advice on, best practices that we've done it for. I've done it for a decade. We've all done it for at least a decade, probably some of you more. So we have a lot of experience on what we do to make sure that we get our work done at the end. So we are now done with the iMore show for this week. So thank you to everybody that jumped in on the chat this week. It was great to see you all. It was great to have some conversations with you. We were reading everything you were saying, and it was really great, really fun. And thanks for some of your advice on best practices for working from home. That's really helpful. We all do these all the time, but a lot of people don't. So thank you for that. And thank you to all of our listeners who listen every week. We do this for you. We appreciate that you listen to us. You keep us going. Without you, we wouldn't have a show. There'd be no reason to do it. And of course, thanks to Jim Metzendorf for making us sound great. If for reals, there wouldn't be a show without Jim Metzendorf, because he edits us, he clips this, he makes us sound good. So thank you, Jim, for everything that you do. We are so happy to have you around and making us sound good. And we will see you all again next week, or talk to you all again next week on the iMore show. Have a great week. And goodbye.